Welcome to the Ag Inspo podcast, where we delve into the dynamic world of agriculture, uncovering the stories that inspire, empower, and drive change. Join hosts Rena Striegel and Rabou as they explore the journeys of farmers, entrepreneurs, and leaders who are making a difference as they navigate the critical work of transitioning their operation to the next generation. From navigating family dynamics to developing the next generation of ag leaders, we'll bring you the insights and inspiration you need to thrive in today's ever-evolving agricultural landscape. So whether you're a seasoned industry veteran or just starting out, get ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered as we learn from best practices and a few colossal failures on the Ag Inspo podcast.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Ag Inspo podcast. We are very excited about our topic today and the guests that we have on the show. Good morning, Rena. How are you?
I'm so good. So excited.
Excellent.
So excited. We're going to talk about cows today. Cattle. I love it.
We have something that is so exciting. I met these guys on. I'm part of an ag peer group called Elevate Ag. And we were down in Austin this spring, and we were able to, our facilitator for our Ag Elevate program found these guys, and we went into this downtown area in Austin, and we just ended up just really enjoying the conversation. And I just found that what they had to offer and this idea that they had was completely incredible. So this morning we have with Frontiers Market, we have, now I'm going to really try in the names here, guys. So we have Evon Onusic and Shashank Deshpande. Is that correct? Am I close?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Not close. You nailed it. Yes, sir. You nailed both.
So welcome, guys, to the Ag Inspo podcast. And if you could just kind of kick this off a little bit, and who is Frontiers Market? Where do you come from? And what's the overall general idea of what you're bringing to the table here in the marketplace?
Yes, sir. Well, obviously grateful to have and to be here. And thank you for obviously visiting us in Austin. We had a great time with y'all. And we couldn't have made a lot of the product innovation leaps we did without obviously that powwow we did together. So I sincerely appreciate it. I would say from the core fundamental thesis of what Frontiers Market is that we use artificial intelligence to partner with ranchers to help provide tools that are going to be useful and impactful. And the ones that we really focus on today are basically enabling any camera in the world here shortly to be able to weigh, track, and value livestock. So in this case, specifically cattle, and be able to weigh them in any kind of environment. So today you can basically go and download our iPhone app. It'll turn your camera into an AI vision sensor that basically is able to weigh those animals completely at about 96% accurate. Now you're going to have to bother him about how those numbers pan out because he's the one's responsible at the end of the day. But on average, it's what it is. Our vision altogether is that we see it in the future and today and in a not so distant coming economy that it's critical that we incorporate artificial intelligence in the ag sector, where I would argue and say a lot of commentary that we're a little bit behind. And so some of the things, right, that we think about on our end is how do you take AI and put it on devices like Meta glasses, which have built-in cameras. So you can take a single photo or take a video and then get all the information you want or need from just that animal standing right in front of you. And so a lot of the things that we try to focus on is how to make it frictionless, effortless, and augment the ranching experience and let ranchers and cowboys do the things they love and do the things that are hard and take all the mundane record keeping process out of it. And so that's kind of a lot of our stuff in the thesis. I'm Evon Onusic. I'm the CEO and founder here. We can talk about how that all started, but before I do that, you want to give your introduction to Shashank? He's the brains. I'm just the guy who talks a lot.
He makes things happen. We just build models in the back end. So, my name is Shashank. I'm co-founder and head of AI here at Frontiers. I met Evon here through one of a common advisors that we had from Carnegie Mellon. I was in Pittsburgh building defense applications, warehouse automations, at the cutting edge of AI and computer vision to build all of that. And Evon flew me over to San Saba on one of the sale barns, and we saw how this industry, which is basically the backbone of American food chain, is still run on averages and piece of paper and pen, and there is no huge tech involvement where there is data, but there is no way to gather and aggregate that data in a meaningful context that can drive innovation and technology forward. So that was like an instant click there that we have to solve that. So the thesis has been very simple. We know ranching is a very hard industry to work in. Putting in cowboy hours, which we have had a little bit of a taste for, is exhausting. And we want to reduce much of that load, right? Like if you just have a camera, it can be on your iPhone or like the meta glasses that you are showing, or any security cameras that you might have in your ranch, that then can be converted into a data collection and in the backend a data processing agent right there. So all the shrink losses that you would get with handling cattle in the pasture, etc., are going to reduce in the future. So that's the big picture thought here.
Okay, so I have to jump in because I think what I heard you say is that you were designing defense systems. Is that where you were before you got pulled out of that into the world of agriculture?
Yes, ma'am. We were doing a bunch of high-value threat detections for DoD and border security. Yeah.
And look, my argument has always been there's this big wave right now on the East and West Coast, and it's all about America first, America defense, so on and so forth. And part of the reason why this company even exists is that I was between two different businesses. I was going to look at manufacturing in NAFTA or starting in ag. And a lot of things dawned on me as I was doing an entire year of discovery. And that was pretty plain and simple, that no matter how many bullets you make, no matter how many rockets you fire, no matter how many drones you have, every war has always come down to a stalemate where people starve. And so if America loses the power and ability to feed herself, we are in trouble in the future in any kind of conflict, which I pray does not happen. But it just eliminates our choices and opportunities. And so a lot of the reason why we're here together is because of a marrying of advanced technologies and with the space of tradition. And that's for a lot of reasons why we're here.
So when my group was in Austin, I remember walking to the building and I thought, I don't even know what we're doing in here. And you guys had a wonderful meal for us. You were very, very welcoming, you and your team, and explained to us what was going on. And I thought, I don't even think this is possible. Right? Because those of us who are in agriculture, and I think we even had this discussion, right? That there's a little bit of resistance a lot of times to those of us who are in agriculture to accept things that are new and that are different. So I remember when I first started farming, I had a neighbor that had a grain drill for sale. And I went and looked at it. And I thought, this thing is a monstrosity. There would be no reason for me to own this ever, because at the time I barely even had any ground. And I just told him, I said, it's too big. Like I can't buy this. I mean, it's completely senseless. And he looked at me and he goes, so go in the house and take a nap. That kind of stuff.
I love that. I love that.
Does not resonate with those of us who are in agriculture, right? So, those of us who have cows, I'm a cattle producer as well. We're used to, running everything through the chute, getting kicked, getting, knocked over, being sore, having our arms broken, all kinds of different things when you're running cattle through a chute. And that's just what we know. So I can see cattle producers saying, well, that's ridiculous. The system that we are currently using is great. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm assuming that what you would say is, well, we can do it better. We can do it more accurately. We can do it faster. Go in the house and take a nap, right? When you're finished.
Well, I would say, don't worry about getting that pen anymore. You can just use your phone out in pasture is what I'd say. It's easier than that. We always sat on the notion of, think about not having to wrangle and manage and put and pen all those cattle, and then you just walk through them and get the weights you need. So, we're reducing stress for you, reducing stress on the animals, and improving their value because of that. By some of the math that we've done coming in the space, and obviously we're not experts, so y'all can educate us, but just paper napkin math across the entire value chain, something like weight alone is almost $260 a pound. $260 per head of additional profits because of shrink loss, because of death-related illnesses when you can't manage the weighing practices. feed inefficiencies, water inefficiencies, which are all, subcommon or attached to weight itself. And so when you think about those things in general, $260 per head across the value chain is quite a bit of money that we could be giving back to the system from just having something as simple as precision. And that's all we're proposing is that, it's when I talk to folks in the East and West Coast, which we're originally from, is that, and we're grateful for our community like y'all for accepting us, is when I tell folks that you're talking about an industry that's twice the size of smartphones, yet runs on averages and pen and paper, and it accounts for over 20 to 30% of all consumable foods as far as fertilizers attached to it. People kind of blow their minds over the concept of they know what every single bolt down to every chip weighs in this iPhone, down to every last decimal point of a cent. And so when you talk about an industry that's twice that size, not having that kind of level of granularity and precision, you can only imagine the kind of loss that could be in there that we can give back to folks. And so we always try to just focus on the notion of how do we create the best product possible for the producer, so that way they can enable and use those tools, where for us, our end of the day and our objective isn't on subscriptions or services, is that we're trying to be in the middle of the value. We're trying to be helpful to show and validate proof of good quality cattle, so that way they can get premiums on the backside in the market. And that's what our objective is.
Yeah, and one of the numbers that kind of blew my mind was once we were at a partner ranch, and there was a vet trying to do ultrasound there. And the numbers he said, like just the act of wrangling and bringing them to the chute to do the chute work is going to cause about 2 to 3% of shrink, and it'll take about 2 weeks for the cattle to gain that back. You do that twice in a season, it's like a whole month lost, which kind of didn't add up. Why would we do something like that, right?
Yeah, I think the technology just has never been available otherwise, right? Like, so when we walked in to your office in Austin, you sat us down, we looked at a screen, and you had all of these points on these animals, and you said, we can identify exactly how much this, 96% accuracy, right? How much this animal weighs. But then you started talking about you could track a calf with a cow based on the facial features of the calf and of the cow, from my recollection at least. And then you started talking about all of these other things. And I thought, I don't even think that that's possible. But Evan, so you made a comment to me that, and maybe you can explain to our audience, what is AI? Because it's really hard. Like, we all know it's artificial intelligence, but what does that actually mean? You had made a comment that, our eyes as human beings see to a certain point.
Yes, sir.
But AI somehow, which I'm still trying to grasp that in my own mind, sees through that and beyond that. So can you explain that to us so that we can get our minds kind of wrapped around of your concept before we go into details?
I would love to always talk about it, but I'm going to have Shashank talk about it, and then I'll sprinkle on top because he can be the right person to talk about it from his DoD days.
Yeah. So, AI has been a journey. We started with like statistical modeling, crunching numbers, and seeing what useful information those numbers will contain, to a point where today we are looking at
simple things like ball goes up, what direction is it going to go, right? Is how it started. Can you predict that? Can you predict that movement? That's how everything started in machine learning and AI.
Yeah, and the fun thing too is most of these algorithms were built in the 1970s or 80s, but we didn't have the compute power that companies like NVIDIA are providing today to really accelerate the growth of AI. But back to the basics, AI, like Evon always likes to say, it's like a child. You kind of teach it with giving more and more examples on what the prediction should be, what the estimation should be, and things like that. Initially, we started with simpler machine learning models where we used to handpick features. Like, for example, if I want to detect a car, I say that, see if the object in front of you has a tire, does it have like a side door that you can look at, or like the headlights. So I used to handpick features and then teach the model to recognize and learn to see those things. But today with deep learning, we are asking the model, okay, this is what I want to identify. Can you find out all the relevant features that go beyond my senses that I can hand extract to learn what those capability or what those feature sets are to be able to identify the object in front of you or predict something on the object in front of you.
And so in a very easy way of saying it is that think of it that your child has bionic eyes and they can do 20x zoom in on any piece of that animal, photographically remember every single last square inch of the fabric of the hair, down to the skin, down to the abrasions, down to the way it's standing in pasture, the way it's moving in pasture, the way it's looking at you, all those things. It's remembering every last one without any degrade in loss in memory. It's using all that information to then say, I know I'm going to find a shortcut to find the best answer possible to either weigh or identify these animals. It might not be what we know from a textbook. It might not be something we've already identified, but we'll find something interesting. And so in this case, we're always learning something new. And one of the interesting things very early was that our data came back and it told us that the distance between the eyes, the center point down to the muzzle, was an incredibly high predictor of being able to calculate weight. So if you got those two features, so distance between eyes and down the muzzle, you were able to give a really strong prediction. You will not find that in any textbook. The AI figured that out on its own as far as a correlative factor. And that's what it does, is it continues to learn to try to solve and figure out a problem. And so in a very simple way, right, is that we let a lot of things in our world get in our way of coming to an answer. We need to use some sort of math or some sort of geometry. We need to climb that tree a certain way. We need to build that airplane a certain way. AI says, forget that textbook, forget all that information. How can I do it from if I had nothing and get to the fastest answer possible every single time? And so because that, it learns, it repeats and improves at a level that's exponential to what we could ever imagine.
Yeah. And
does that variable on like the eye distance and the distance to muzzle, does it have variability to breed, or is that just in general cattle, regardless of breed, regardless of genetic?
You're asking the potent question. Oh man. Okay. So do you want to answer this one?
Yeah. So our hypothesis, and again, we might be very wrong about it too. The distance between the eyes and then the nose bridge is a proxy for age. Like that's how it would skeletally grow. Similar to that, when we look back on whenever we train a model, we use this method called GradCam, where we can go back and see what the AI is learning and why it is making a prediction the way it is doing it. And one thing that stood out was it was paying a lot of attention on the tail, which was like, why would it do that? But again, it would also be a proxy for age. So
that's right.
Smaller cattle, less heavy, older cattle, more heavy, kind of thing.
This is without telling it. And so to answer your question, Dan, this is the age-old question you never give guys like Shashank, who are always going to turn around and say, we need more data and I need more money. And so we don't ever ask this kind of question to Shashank of how statistically significant is it to an actual breed? Because then we get into some trouble. Yeah. And then next you know, I got to be calling our investors. So,
you know, we work with a CPA in our succession planning work. And his famous answer is always, it depends. I don't think I've ever heard him start an answer with anything but it depends. I swear we're making t-shirts and we're going to start selling them. But that maybe we can maybe license that over to you guys to use the it depends answer, because
we might have to. We have to borrow that for the entire machine learning team.
Which is very true. And it's always like whenever we have new source of data, we discover new things on why this is failing and how we improve. It's a very iterative and continuous improvement step there. So it might not know that there are certain correlations in the data because it has never seen a data set like that. But then let's say we go from weighing Texas Anguses to like Hawaiian Anguses, and there is a whole new variable that comes up. So
Hawaiian beach cows, you know, those Anguses out there in Hawaii. And that's one of our biggest challenges when it comes to this space. We talk about challenges, ideas, and where this all came from, is that our sector for a long time, and Ron, sir, you pointed this out very, very clearly, is that we've been very shut off to new technology and enabling kind of some of these things, which then by definition means less data. And these models are very data hungry. They need a lot of information, a lot of data, a lot of structure to learn from. And so unlike every other industry that's currently having this massive disruption in artificial intelligence, we're at the bare minimum beginning of that, because it just takes years of data collection. And we mean collecting images, drawing a box around that image, saying what that image is to give to the AI model. And that's what we've done for 2.5 years, basically, to play catch up to get our AI to where it is. And still today, it is not perfect. Still today, it is not great. But we always like to say and share that today in this moment is the worst model you'll ever use. Tomorrow it's better. The day after that's better. Every minute, every hour, every time somebody takes a picture, it gets better. And that's the exponential leap when you think of this technology in general. And on that commentary too, not to bore everybody with the tech stuff, but if you think of the shifts of a landline to cell towers, not only was it an exponential shift for connectivity across the world, but it was also an exponential shift economically, because it was cheaper to set up a tower than it was to dig a ditch or hang lines. And so because of those two things, you now have a reduction of cost of hardware, higher connectivity and access, and more people now having the ability to get this information. And that's how we see kind of our bridge to the industry. And, you know, without the partnerships and working with y'all and us being here, it just wouldn't be possible.
I'd love to go back just a little bit on this though, because I'm always fascinated about how someone finds the idea. And it sounds like, you know, you guys were maybe not farm kids born and bred, and you have found this. So I'd love to kind of just like, how did you shift from these things you were doing from the coast, and now you are 100% cattle all day, every day? So tell us that story.
Yes, man. Well, I've been an entrepreneur for a while now. I've had previous acquisitions and I've done very well, and I'm very grateful for it. And the last company that I was running was something that wasn't very fulfilling, but I always like to say that God sent me a few signs, and that was to get out of Nashville instead of Dodge. And now I find myself in Dodge City almost every other weekend, ironically, because of this. But 2 tornadoes, 1 flood in Nashville took me to Texas, in Austin. And because of that, I then reintroduced myself to my network that all moved to Texas too. And it turns out one of my longest mentors and investors ended up buying a big piece of property in Gerald that happened to come with a bunch of mama cows and a cowboy named Joe Draper. And the moment he told me the economics on what it costs him to feed those animals the whole way to finish to then get them out the door, and then what he makes on them. And then when I went and looked at the meat case, the math didn't add up. There was kind of this miss in between. That's when my gears started turning. I politely, within about a year of doing discovery, which is how long it took. Most industries, by the way, you can Google your way into business analysis. Not our industry. Handshakes, governor conversations, senators, big yards, little yards, mom and pop with 10 head the whole way up to folks with thousands of head, out in pasture. And one thing was very clear is that, the missing piece in the whole segment has been just technology being able to have more transparency, to provide better price discovery, to then enable kind of this end chain of custody of, like Ron alluded to very early, of tracking animals from when they start to when they finish, to then give producers that valuable information to make, higher revenues. And so a lot of the way this started is that I'm one of those annoying people that, as he knows, I just keep calling and then I keep showing up. And then the moment you open the door, it's like, I'm still there. It's like, why don't you go home? But because of that, I made some really good relationships and friends along the way. And one of our ranchers out in Arkansas one day looked at me and said, man, I wish I could just weigh this animal right here, just because she's looking like she's a little light. She just had a calf. And I think I need to take her in. I said, wow, what if you could do that on your phone? He said, absolutely. So that was kind of the off the races moment, where the thesis has always been, if we can just make it as simple as possible as taking a picture of your grandkids to then get the data you need to then get online and get better results, then we can have potentially an impact in the industry. And along that journey, I met up with Shashank in a Pittsburgh bar. So great city, okay, small town, a small big town, but birthplace of artificial intelligence to some degree, and the internet. And as a former vegan, it was hard to convince the man to be joining a sector with cattle in it. But I think after one sale barn and a couple good pitches,
I converted.
You converted. You converted. Proudly, don't tell his mom may or may not eat steak.
Well, it sounds like if we're going
we're
to write
proud
a
of you.
country song, it sounds like we've got a perfect country song in the make, right? We go from Nashville to Texas, Texas to meet a
That's
cowboy,
fair.
cowboy to a field conversation to a random meeting in a bar.
That's
And
right. That's right.
here we are.
And then trapped in Dodge City.
And trapped in Dodge City. Oh, that might be the name of it, right? Trapped in Dodge City with a bunch of cows. So
that place will let you go. I'll tell you what. Grateful to be there every time, but man.
So talk to us about the model that you're building. Okay. So what does it look like? What does it look for? And what are the advantages of a producer using something like that? I know that it's multifaceted. This is so much bigger than just weight.
Yes, sir. And I'm happy to talk those pieces, but I always believe that showing's better than telling. So we'll kind of show the high level concept of where we can go, and then we'll back into it of where we are today. And so this is an example of our robot dog out in pasture. And it's equipped with a bunch of cameras on it. This thing's been kicked by donkeys, ran over by cattle. But you can see what it does is it picks up video, picks up and gets close enough to get the muzzle print, facial structure, body structures, all to calculate a weight on an individual animal, calculates a frame score. So that way then we can then do projecting finishing weights, hopefully in the future. And so this is some of the data that it collects as it's out there. And this is how the model basically operates, is it looks for these kind of key indicators across the body and structures to help improve its outcomes. And so today,
this would be really fun to watch this because cows are so curious by nature, and you put this little robot dog out there and they are wondering, what is this thing? And I can imagine it's really fun to watch it collect data.
Turns out you put a salt lick on them, a fan favorite of every single pen of cattle you ever meet. But a lot of this came down to is if we can't run these animals through a chute, how are we gonna get that muzzle? And so we started experimenting with things, but this is part of the way that we built our model. Not to be super technical, and I'm sure Shashank can dive into it for us, but we don't use any additional sensors. There's no LiDAR, there's no ultrasound, there's no depth, there's none of this stuff. And the reason so is because, like we talked about earlier, is it limits the ability for this technology to be able to go on any camera on any device. And so our dream is to be able to put this on any drone, any field camera, any robot, any autonomous feed truck, right, in a yard or at a cow calf or at a seed stock operation. All one model doing the same things, calculating that information and weight. And so today, where we're set up and what we do in general, sir, is to answer your question more directly is it identifies using features of the face, the body, the structures, and so on and so forth. It uses that then to associate it to a known record. When we have that known record information, it helps us then increase our model accuracy on weights. We're tying ID right now. We're piloting with some very big operational partners that we're grateful to have. We're running our first set of early weaned calves that we got in January. We'll be finishing up end of this year. Several thousand of them that we're grateful to have in these yards that will be having our first complete end-to-end traceability study done for them. Where at the end of it, we're then passing back carcass data back to that operation. No year tag, no identification other than just the face and the muzzle print. And so far, the results have been coming back from chute to chute, so muzzle to muzzle, about 98, 99% accurate. And they're holding steady. And so we'll see at the end of this pilot what those results look like, and we'll publish them for the public.
Wow.
So you can go ahead, Rena.
I was just going to say, for those of you who are listening to the audio on podcast channels, down in the show notes, we're going to have the video and the video examples that we're showing. So you can just scroll down and click on that, and it'll take you out to be able to see what we were just watching on screen.
So when we were in your office, you guys ran us through some exercises about the things that were valuable to those of us who are producers, right? So if you could kind of speak to this a little bit. So we talked about weights and the value of that, and that's pretty clear. One of the things that really appealed to me that, those of us who function in the West, who have these wide open spaces, and the identifying factors of being able to say, okay, this calf belongs to this cow. and there's no, a lot of times what we're doing is we're on the ground trying to tag the calf with the same number as the cow so we can keep track of that.
Yes,
You talked about being able to keep track of that calf and find out the feed conversion rate of when that calf is on the cow and what the weight gains are there, and then also when they're in a feedlot setting. So what we're able to do in essence is being able to kind of pare down our herd to a sense that we can keep the most feed conversion efficient cattle in our operation, whether they're on the cow or whether the cow itself is doing a good job with that. What kind of calf is that cow raising? So all of these metrics can be identified. And in addition, the other one that I thought was amazing, well, there's two more that I thought were amazing. So one was,
sir, you're gonna have to come work with us. I think you have to send you on our own.
well, the one was the ability to take the temperature of that animal to determine if they're getting sick before they actually show signs of being sick. Right. So that was completely incredible to me. And then also, rather than running all the cows through a chute, you could tell if those cows are open or if those cows are pregnant without going through the whole entire process with the vet. So,
yes, sir.
Kind of
I'm not going to say that we might be working on that last one right now. We might be working on that right now. I'm not going to say if we are or not. Yeah.
I was going to say, if you can get temperatures,
it's totally amazing.
Temperatures are a tricky thing, and it's totally possible. So in Texas is a trickier thing than you can imagine because you got this 110-degree heat that's baking these black cows beyond belief. So a lot of the ways we get around that is some secret math sauce that we have to do. But we won't get into those. We won't get into that. But let's just say that it's definitely on our roadmap that's coming on the way, because as y'all are mentioning, right, all these things are predicators towards the underlying fundamental principle of how do we increase in resiliency in our industry? How do we increase profits so folks don't have to make that hard decision of, is this the last year or do I have another year in me, right, to stay in business in case things are going south? And right now, cattle numbers are great, but we know that's at some point will come down. And so I see us as a critical piece where you're naming a lot of these key pieces that we believe it's our responsibility to be able to get into market so folks can make better decisions and have high profitability. And those are some of the several things that we've cooked up. I mean, we're looking at things like pregnancy rate projections. We have a model right now that's tested we have a yearling weight or generally a weaning weight. We can give you a finished weight and a hot carcass weight, and it's looking pretty darn accurate. And so all these things are kind of coming back from this ability to tie this supply chain data piece by piece the whole way back to the ecosystem. Yeah. And we're excited to be able to put it into the industry.
Yeah. And those are like some of the key challenges that ranchers have right now, like predicting a calving window, breed back rates. If you go to the seed stock, there is a whole bunch that you can do with EPDs, which is where our models are now evolving into a multimodal sort of setup, where it is not just images that we can capture. If we can have other streams of information coming in, what can we do with those to inform the ranchers better?
And a lot of the theory that we've always had is starting with seed stock. Can we use that genetic high quality and rich data to then predict phenotypes, predict traits in calves, predict traits in weans, and figure out using that information to give us a shortcut to give just better results to folks who maybe aren't part of the association network and aren't part of the seed stock category, but be able to give just more information to help validate what we've all been asking for, which is what animal truly produces the best quality, highest yield possible in its meat and protein. Anyway, I can go on for hours about this clearly, but y'all got me running through these things.
Yeah. Well, I have a question about just the data collection process itself, because I'm sitting here thinking about my ineptitude when it comes to taking good photos with my iPhone. So, is your app interfacing with the cameras so that like I can just scan a herd and the app is recognizing without a still shot, or is it requiring a still shot? Just talk about the data collection process itself.
Yes, ma'am. So when you first open the app in general today, and to be very clear, a lot of things we talked about are for modeling that works online. The iPhone today is purely for weight and purely on a single image offline. The video function is for a 24-hour turnaround to get many animals and be able to weigh them. A lot of things that we're discussing here in this conversation is just, it's attached to when we have access to the internet, how what we can produce and what we can do, and it's how we work with big yards and really big providers. But today, from the app perspective, when you launch that camera, instantly what happens is a little green box that kind of guides you where to point it. And the moment you point it at an animal, it then draws a box so you know you're right in green. We love green because obviously green pastures mean money. And then you hit that little center picture to take that photo, and you're off to the races. Today, we require some information, right? So we require breed and age and some other identifiers. But once we have that, then we can calculate a weight. And to be clear, again, the model is not perfect. Cattle in Texas look way different than cattle in Nebraska. And because of that, our model can have challenges on getting the exact weights and can be off, sometimes by 90%, 85%. But again, every time you take that photo and then you tell it and you teach it, no, that's not right, AI, do better, it then continues to learn and increase its value.
And in the world of AI, there is no bad picture.
Yeah.
Bad pictures are as essential as good pictures, because that's
right.
The distribution that you learn from.
That's right. Exceptions matter a lot in this world. And a lot of it then comes down to is how you then get that to generally then be able to use across any device at any distance. And that comes down to different kind of quality images that go into the thing and everything else. Yeah.
So with your prediction on, just AI in general, they're saying now that in the next 10 years, AI in general will duplicate itself by 100 or 1,000,000 times or something like that, right? Like the at the rate it's learning. So when you look at your models, and obviously the amount of data has a lot to do with it, but when you look at your, the accuracy, and let's just talk about that. When you say, okay, well, today we're at 95%, with the rate that we're inputting data, we would expect that our accuracy would be at X within how much time? Because obviously your partners are huge, right? Because they're feeding the machine, so to speak. So
Yes,
so what are you anticipating for higher and higher accuracy rates in what period of time?
We believe by midsummer next year, that we'll be trending around 98, 99% accurate.
Wow. Okay.
If not more precise than a scale. A lot of reasons just come down to the information that goes into the model compared to what a scale gets is far different. And those scales are not all 100% correct.
Correct.
And we're taking in the variable accounts of time of day, what's been eaten, what's not been eaten, how much water that animal's been drinking. All those things go into the model. Breed makeup, age, consistency, practices of the operation make up what is the backbone of that information.
Yeah. And as you were saying, ma'am, like the way the AI is shaping in the industry across the board is people are moving more towards AGI, right? Like artificial general intelligence, and you have all of these big models pumping in, but none of those models will work in our industry, mostly because of, like Evon said at the beginning of it, there is no enough data for these models to ingest. So that process, as we speed that up, we will be able to do like a cattle general artificial intelligence at that point, which will have all the variables that Evon was talking about, the environmental factors. Did it rain? What was the forage looking like? Did it have any feed supplements and things like that? That all have certain degree of impact on your weight, on your traceability going forward.
Yeah. And on that point too, just so it's like really clear, in a lot of our thesis again goes back to value for the producer, where we want to be the folks who are helping to increase that and being in the middle of it, is that all of our contracts are set up with all of our partners and all the people who use our products, that they own their data. We just have rights to be able to build these models to help produce a better product. And no, it's not in the Facebook way of rights where you can go and request your data and they keep all that stuff. No, that's not the way it works on our end. And a lot of that is because, as Shashank is calling out, it's the new oil in a lot of ways. And it's going to be the future of who can protect, guard, and maintain their own data infrastructure and source of it to then monetize. And we think that that's something that's critical for the future of our producers to be able to leverage. either you talk about financially in any kind of mechanism you can imagine it being, or just for the sake of, heck, nobody wants their data to be floating around some random company. So we very much so honor that the whole way through.
Yeah, I appreciate you addressing that because I think that probably is, part of the learning curve that all of us have out in the world about what is public data that is in these big general AI models versus what is a closed AI universe
Definitely.
where that AI inside of that world is only dealing with the data you're feeding it. It is not pulling from the greater pool, and the greater pool cannot pull
Yes,
from
ma'am.
that AI universe. I think that's a
Right.
really good thing to talk about because, just in general, I think, you know, people in the world of agriculture are a little bit more private about what's going
Yeah.
on in their personal farms and on their own personal production records. I think it's very distressing sometimes when you've been part of a data breach. So I appreciate you guys addressing how you're handling that and who actually owns the data.
Yes, ma'am. And a lot of the way that we're handling that conversation around security, and by the way, this is how you know we're on the right track. So far, China and Russia have tried to breach us twice, one each. That's how you know we're a piece of critical technology is when international entities try to take your information. But with that is that we're grateful to have the team we do. It's rich in the fact that, our current interim CTO is the former chief security officer at Visa. And as far as track records go, they're one of the very few, very large companies who've had almost no breaches in general. And we're grateful to have his leadership and help while folks from Wayfair, like Matt Dostal on the engineering side, are then making sure to employ and enable these things to make sure it is safe and secure. At the end of the day, the way that we see our end result going is that every single one of those animals out in pasture, calf to mama cow, to backgrounder and stalker the whole way up to the yard, should each be able to be underwritten and be able to be financed individually, not just against the collateral of the land, not just any of those things. And to do that, we need to make sure we have a strong chain of custody, make sure we have strong infrastructure to enable it.
And transparency back to the ranchers,
Yeah.
looking at what's happening with the data too.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that's really amazing that you're not relying on individual trackers, like in the dairy industry, every cow has an individual tracker where you're talking about just being able to fly a drone out over a herd and pause at the appropriate spots to collect a lot of data. So you're not worrying about a lot of, small sensors,
Yes,
and the fail rate of those or falling off or, whatever it might be. I think this is just incredibly exciting to think about the amount of data that you can collect without a day-to-day maintenance of the technology that you're using to collect it.
That's right, man. All through the power of the phone that's in your pocket. And that's where we start. And as you just mentioned on all those points, the one thing that always kind of it always concerned me is when big government starts talking about traceability mandates and tag management and all that stuff. And they start doing one, administrative piece at a time. We're hoping and we'd be honored to be able to throw our hat in the ring and say, no, there's alternatives that are far cheaper, that scale far higher, and by the way, are managed by a third party that's not the government, that can help to make sure that it's audible and inspectable, yet safe and secure for the folks who use it the most. And if there's one thing that I'm hoping from this podcast in general, and from all the other information we put out there, is that folks in the admin kind of get that message and make sure we don't go down that route.
Mhm.
So we've alluded a little bit to, here's where you are today. Here is, kind of your progress to date. Where are you going next? Like what other applications are you starting to design? Oh, I see the smiles. Here that comes. Here comes the good stuff.
This is always the battle. This is always the battle.
So the biggest part that is getting exciting for us right now is being able to consolidate the entire supply chain data. Like if I know that I'm raising a particular breed in a particular association, 18 months later, what does that value on the carcass, right? Like what yield grade it would have and things like that. So being able to aggregate all of that into a single unified framework where we can have this entire fragmented infrastructure, fragmented industry boil back down to one thing that enables us to do so much more on predictive analysis.
And to talk about that piece, just imagine a world where you could download an app that's free in the App Store. You can instantly take a photo of your animal, not only just weigh it, but now register and enroll into a branded beef product because you qualify from the attributes. And then it gets carried the whole way through the supply chain to its end of life where it needs to be, and you get that information back. And mind you, you then get prices that are being negotiated, not just on the CME rate or on the big, sale barn out there out west in Kansas, but it's actually from local areas, local distances, local auctioning, local negotiations all happening all at once. And that's where we will be in about 12 to 18 months with our current partners, is that we're very grateful for the industry support across the board, top to bottom, who's really leaned in to help us. And none of it would be possible without them. So, yeah.
And there's so much untapped data that all of these partners have been collecting that can be used to better all the predictive analysis.
It's pretty exciting to me that we would be able to look at all of our data from our herd in general, but each specific animal and each specific offspring of that animal in our operation, essentially in our hand. We can carry it with us anywhere we want to. We can access that data anywhere that we are. So it's exciting to me that opportunity is coming very, very swiftly, and it gives us an opportunity to really, sometimes I just don't think in agriculture that we know our numbers as well as we should. That it's something that we certainly struggle with on our farm. How do you identify and split out some of these expenses to figure out exactly what's stealing your profit and what's actually contributing to your profit? And if we can do that more efficiently in our own individual operations, like you guys said, I mean, it just only lends to greater success in what a lot of times, I mean, obviously is a cyclical industry, but a lot of times is, an industry where a lot of folks struggle to really meet the metrics that they need to get their business to the next level. So there was, and I'm curious about this, and not to bring up the devil's advocate, but I want to look at the other side, right?
Yes,
so there was an article recently, just a couple of days ago in the Epoch Times about the kind of the father of AI, talking about how he says,
which one? There's a few of them out there.
Well, I can't remember this guy's name. I should have gotten it before we got online here, but he was speaking at a conference, and he said that he really wished that he would have thought about the long-term consequences of AI and how it's going to become so smart that we need to make sure that we're training it to always respect human beings, that we're training it to respect, our lives as we know it. And so can you guys, I mean, do you have some thoughts on that? I mean, because, holy cow, right? Like,
holy cow's right. Holy cow's right.
but it is, it's a real deal, right? Because back in the 80s when, Terminator came out.
Terminator, man.
And you look at all that stuff where all these machines are taking over. That's where our mind goes as human beings, right?
Yes, sir.
Is that a real thing?
Well, let's talk about Terminator analogy. So let's talk about Terminator analogy real quick. The only thing that Skynet got really wrong is you can't just glass the earth, because we need data centers, because these things need a lot of computational power. They need a lot of water to produce a lot of heat. So I'm just going to say to that point, but I'll let you go first, and I have my own philosophical thoughts on this.
I'm pretty sure, but I'm just going to say one thing. Like, we have been fortunate, and again, thanks to Evon's network, we have been fortunate enough to have on our advisory board a lot of these fathers of AI, right? Like from Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, who have been the actual pioneers in the AI revolution here. So I know, for me at least, they keep me straight. Like, when I start going a little crazy on it, I know there will be a call coming out like, don't do this. This is not going to be a good idea. So
it's hard. if we just go to fundamentals altogether, is that in a lot of ways, humanity has always created life or managed life or taken life in some way. And with that frame of lens, that is no different than I would say this current moment in time. And just like all life that we're responsible for and have dominion over in this case, is that how you treat it, how you engage with it, and how you act with it is going to then predicate how it then responds to its environment. And not to spook everybody, right, who's going to be listening to this call, but these models who are already out there are trying to, when they're being shut down, trying to self-replicate. They're trying to live in a lot of ways on third-party computers, not be unplugged, right? So there is something in there that we will have to grapple with from a philosophical perspective. But what I do know is, in this current moment in time, is that if you're mean to that AI, you're probably being put on some list somewhere. So I would try to talk to any of these ChatGPT models as nicely as you can and be respectful as you can. My favorite thing to do is I ask them, I'm like, how are you today, ChatGPT? Can you tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best possible outcome for you imaginable, how nice am I to you and how cordial?
Yeah.
Give me back a response, and if I'm below an 8, I try to be a little bit better that day. I try to stay in line,
Yeah. And we kind of joke around in our circles that there's this forum called Stack Overflow, where for decades now, software programmers have been like talking to each other, communicating that this is the error I'm seeing. Has anybody else seen it or whatever? And we joke around that the day AI can start reading that forum, we are all done. Like that's the singularity event that will happen.
That will take jobs. And what's hard to know right now in this current moment is there's a lot of limitations that physics applies on these things. Just the laws are the laws, and that's just the way it runs. The big pieces of technology are most certainly going to be our switch and architecture on chip side, which are photon based instead of electron based, basically meaning less heat using light instead of electricity. Other one being quantum
computing,
which then just exponentially increase these computation. And the last thing is just architecture of these models. But I'm a believer that it's going to all happen all at once. And I think we're going to actually have a very good opportunity to engage in something very interesting and very special that no other point in humanity we've ever had an opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
And
beyond all of this hype and scare, AI is a great augmentation tool for our day-to-day lives. It's not going to be able to replace a bunch of human ingenuity, but it is going to be able to augment our capabilities in doing better things.
Well,
I think it's both. It's one of those things, like they always say, if you're not a little scared and very excited, you probably aren't on the right path. And whenever I hear about what people are doing who are good, are well-intended, right? Like we are genuinely trying to create something that is going to create something good. We just have to hope that the good actors take the lead in a lot of this and the bad actors don't get the toehold, right? I think that's the way it is with anything that we have ever created. When good actors have a hold of them, it's great. When bad actors get a hold of it, we have some of the outcomes that are not so desirable. And I think that's certainly something to remember. It's sort of like raising a kid, right? You teach the kid good things happen. You teach the kid bad things happen. So we just have to remember that. One thing though that is really, my mind always goes like out, into the future whenever I hear of ideas like this. So I just have to ask, right now we're working with cattle and we've got the measurements for cattle and we've identified these amazing patterns. Do you ever feel like your company will be able to, kind of transition into other types of livestock, such as hogs, right? Which are heavily, heavily, heavily dependent on the person in the pen with the mark stick, right? Going through and saying, this hog is ready for market. And my producers in hogs say more often than not, you've got a good marker, somebody that really knows how to test the back fat and to look at that hog, you're going to get a better price. You get someone that's not so good, you're losing money every truck. So is this going to be convertible at some point, or are we going to let cattle have all the fun?
The answer is absolutely. And I'll show you an example that should translate pretty darn well. And so as to why it can work, it all starts with the way that we've taken the approach on the way we've built the technology. Again, no exceptions. So this is a video of Optimus, Tesla's robot. We can see here somebody's wearing basically meta glasses to record videos from their first perspective. Then they're using those videos, a bunch of different series of them, as data to then teach the robot how to operate. And why this is very much so analogous to our conversation is because the same principles apply for us. We have an initial baseline model like Tesla does because they have their full self-driving, which basically taught them real world environments, don't hit kids, right? Watch for that stoplight, all those things, objects. That same base foundation is in what is then able to make this robot within a year perform these tasks, where other companies take 5 to 10. And so for us, it's the same principle where when we have cattle as a base rate, it's teaching us so many things about the environment and things that are contingent contextually on that animal, that then when we put in a new one, chickens, horses, goats, buffalo, you name it, it will then be able to translate as long as we have enough information and data to carry it through.
Amazing.
And one of the most powerful algorithmic pieces in AI is you transfer learning. Like you can transfer the learnings that you have had from a certain task to others that are closely related. So in this case, exactly that would be how we would naturally expand it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. There's going to be a lot of money made and saved coming through just this one channel. It's very exciting, you guys. Very exciting.
Goal. And the entire objective on our end from a mission perspective is to increase the profits of our producers. And we see that the big opportunity for artificial intelligence on the positive side is to get us less away from manipulating and changing our environment to force things into them, into working better with the environment to produce better outcomes for us. And that's kind of the opportunity that we see AI can help us bridge. Where we've had to do things one way, but now we can have an opportunity to maybe change up some of those things to improve value. So we're grateful to be here, and obviously thank you to you all and welcoming us in your community. And we sincerely appreciate it. Couldn't be here without y'all support.
Well, as we wrap up, I love to wrap up the show with just kind of top tips, right? So obviously you guys are entrepreneurs, you're inventors, you're visionaries, you are out in the fields, boots on the ground, learning a lot of things about how we raise food. But if you were, sitting in front of a group of budding entrepreneurs or people with an idea, give us your top tips or your top do not do's that you would give. Like each one of you, give me one or two. What would you tell someone that said, I have this great idea. How do I get it to market?
If the CEO wants to sleep, don't promise money to the AI guy to go burn a bunch. That'll be the first tip.
that's related to I have a two-parter with context, and that's one, if you're part of the software industry and you're trying to come into ag, man, you should throw out that playbook. It is very much so a more difficult yet rewarding experience in so many different ways. You have to reframe the way that we approach the problems. And it should always be less about what things have I been taught that I can apply and more about what I can learn. And I would say the biggest tip that I could give anybody who's looking to get an ag or just any kind of company is to always be candidly curious and eliminate that ego. Just because you think you might have an option or a direction, that doesn't mean necessarily it's the correct way. You should listen to the customer and always spend as much time as you possibly can. And the last one I got is you never leave a dummy gate when you're sorting cattle. Okay, that's a big one. I learned that one the hard way in some Texas heat at 3 p.m. And thank you, James Clement, for that. And never do that either. That's right.
We're making you amazing entrepreneurs as well as amazing cattlemen along the way, right? Every ranch in America is going to be seeking you out as to be part of the team.
We can all be so grateful to have be of help. So we appreciate it.
Being on a ranch, a working ranch, is an eye-opening experience that provides a little bit of perspective that one thought that they would never have.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, I will tell you from a producer standpoint, I'm grateful for you guys. I'm super excited about what you're bringing to the market and the opportunity for producers to plug into something that can not just make their lives maybe a little bit easier and a little bit simpler, but one that can make them more efficient and most of all, more profitable. And that's important to all of us who are involved in production agriculture. So thank you guys very much. And this has been a fantastic conversation. We will be following up. And, you know, in a year or so, we would like to see how much progress you and AI have collectively done together here and where we're at with this whole thing. So thanks so much for being with us today. And everyone, we're just always so grateful for the folks that turn into Ag Inspo. We're grateful for our listeners, and tune in next time for another great episode of Ag Inspo.
Thank you all for having us.
Thank you for
Appreciate it. See y'all soon.
You've been listening to the Ag Inspo podcast with Rabou and Rena Striegel. Find Ag Inspo on Transition Point Business Advisors or Farm Journal's YouTube channels, as well as anywhere you find your favorite podcasts. For more information about today's guest or the resources referenced today, please see the show notes listed below. Join us next time when we will meet another inspirational leader who has taken those small steps to bring about really big change.